5 days after spinal surgery, I woke to the sound of my husband dragging folding chairs across the kitchen floor. The surgeon had given me 3 strict instructions: no bending, no lifting, no twisting. Evan apparently heard something different. By 8 that morning, 12 members of his family were on their way to our house with luggage, children, dietary demands, and the expectation that I would host them for an entire weekend. He had not asked me. He had not warned me. And, according to the message he sent his sister, I was supposedly delighted about it. I stood at the top of the staircase in a rigid back brace, gripping my walker with both hands, while Evan arranged chairs around the dining table below. "Why are there 15 place settings?" I asked. He looked up. For 1 second, annoyance crossed his face. Then he smiled. "Good. You're awake." That wasn't my question. My parents' rental house had a plumbing problem. So the family weekend is happening here. I stared at him. "Today. They'll arrive around 6. My medication made everything feel slightly distant, but even through the fog, I understood what he was saying. His parents, his 2 sisters and their husbands, his younger brother, 3 adult cousins, 2 teenagers, and his Aunt Marlene, who had once complained that the towels in my guest bathroom were decorative rather than absorbent. 12 people. 5 days after surgeons had placed metal hardware in my spine. "Evan, I can barely walk to the bathroom." "You won't have to do much." He said it lightly, as though feeding 12 guests, changing bedding, cleaning bathrooms, and managing his family's constant demands were things that happened by themselves. "You promised I would have a quiet recovery. This is an emergency. A flooded rental is an emergency for a plumber, not for a woman who just left the hospital." His jaw tightened. "Their family, Claire. I know exactly who they are." "Then you know I can't turn them away." "You could book them a hotel." "That would be rude." I almost laughed. Apparently, making a woman recover from spinal surgery while hosting 12 people was acceptable, but suggesting a hotel was cruel. Evan carried another chair from the hallway. "My mother and father will use the downstairs suite." I tightened my grip around the walker. "The downstairs suite is where I'm recovering. We'll move your medical bed into the office." "The office doesn't have an attached bathroom. It's only for 3 nights. My discharge plan requires me to stay downstairs." "You're already walking." "With a walker." He released the chair with a sharp thud. "Claire, I am trying to keep everyone happy." "No, you are volunteering my body and my house, so no one becomes unhappy with you." His face hardened. "You always make things sound dramatic." I looked at the 6-inch incision hidden beneath my brace. I had part of my spine fused together 5 days ago. "Exactly. The surgery is over." For several seconds, neither of us spoke. That sentence told me more about my marriage than the previous 11 years had. To Evan, once the surgeon finished operating, my suffering had become an inconvenience with an expiration date. He walked into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. "I ordered groceries. You can tell me what needs preparing." "I'm not preparing anything." "You can sit while chopping." "I'm not chopping." He turned toward me. "What do you expect me to tell them?" "The truth." "What truth?" "That you invited 12 people into a recovering patient's home without her permission." "It's my home, too." The words came quickly, almost rehearsed. I studied him. Our house had belonged to my mother. She bought it after my father died and lived there until cancer made the stairs impossible. When she passed away, she left it to me. Evan moved in 4 months after our wedding. His name had never been added to the deed. He knew that, yet recently, he had begun referring to the house differently. "Our investment, our biggest asset, our retirement plan." I had noticed the shift, but ignored it. People often ignore small changes in language until they discover the plan hiding behind them. "I need to lie down," I said. "Before you do, can you make a list of what we need from the store?" "No." His expression sharpened. "What is wrong with you?" I looked down at him. I'm beginning to ask myself the same question. My name is Claire Morgan. I was 42 years old, and before my surgery I worked as a restoration architect specializing in historic houses. I understood foundations. I knew how hidden damage spread behind beautiful walls. A small crack could be harmless, or it could mean the weight above it was no longer being carried correctly. Marriage was not so different. For years, Evan and I looked stable. He worked as a regional sales director for a medical equipment company. I ran my own architecture studio. We had no children, partly by choice and partly because timing never seemed kind. Instead, our home became the center of his family's life. Birthdays happened in my garden. Thanksgiving happened in my kitchen. His parents stayed whenever they visited the city. His siblings used our guest rooms between leases, divorces, renovations, and personal crises. At first, I welcomed them. I grew up as an only child and mistook constant company for closeness. Then I realized that Evan's family loved what I provided more than they loved me. They praised my cooking, but never helped clean. They admired the house, but treated it like a free hotel. They called me generous whenever they needed something. If I said no, I became distant, difficult, too focused on money. Evan always promised to defend me later. Later never came. 3 months before my surgery, the pain in my lower back became unbearable. A damaged disc was compressing nerves down my left leg. I stopped sleeping. My foot began going numb. After physical therapy failed, the surgeon recommended a lumbar fusion. Evan attended one appointment. He spent most of it answering emails. Still, the night before surgery, he held my hand and promised, "When you come home, I'll handle everything." I wanted to believe him badly enough that I did. By noon, Evan left for the supermarket. I slowly made my way downstairs and entered the recovery suite. A hospital bed stood near the window. My medications were arranged on a small table. A raised chair sat beside the bathroom. A visiting nurse came each afternoon to check the incision and monitor my movement. Everything had been prepared, so I would not need stairs. Evan wanted to give the room to his parents because his mother disliked sleeping upstairs. I lowered myself carefully onto the bed. A shared tablet rested beside my water bottle. I used it for work, household bills, and family video calls. When the screen lit up, a message preview appeared. It came from Evan's niece, Natalie. "Aunt Claire, are you really okay with all of this?" I opened it. Natalie was 26 and had always seemed different from the rest of the family. Quieter, more observant. She lived 2 states away and worked as a school counselor. I typed, "All of what?" Her reply arrived almost immediately. "Uncle Evan said you asked everyone to come because you have a major announcement." My pulse changed. What announcement? The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, then returned. "He said you're transferring the house into the Morgan Family Trust." I stared at the message. There was no Morgan Family Trust. At least, not one I knew about. Natalie sent another message. "Grandma says you and Uncle Evan are giving her and Grandpa lifetime use of the downstairs suite. Aunt Dana says she'll manage events here. Everyone is talking like the house is becoming family property." Coldness moved through me, not fear, clarity. I remembered a document Evan brought to the hospital the morning after my surgery. He called it an insurance authorization. I had been exhausted, nauseated, and connected to Infor. He placed a pen in my hand. "Just sign where I'm marked," he said. I tried reading the first paragraph. The words blurred. I told him I would do it at home. His irritation surprised me. He took the pages away and said the deadline was flexible after all. Now I wondered what had really been inside that folder. I wrote to Natalie. Did Evan send anyone documents? 3 minutes passed. Then she forwarded a photograph. The first page read, "Morgan Family Property and Management Agreement." The document described my home as a shared family asset. It appointed Evan as managing trustee. It granted his parents lifetime residency. and it gave his sister Dana authority to operate the property as a private event venue. My name appeared at the bottom. The signature looked almost correct. Almost, but I had never signed it. My hands began trembling. Natalie sent one final message. "I'm sorry. I thought you knew." I called my attorney. Naomi Reed had handled my business contracts and my mother's estate. She answered after 2 rings. "Claire, how are you feeling?" "My husband created a family trust using my house." Silence. Then her voice changed. "Send me everything." I forwarded the document and Natalie's messages. Naomi called again 11 minutes later. "This agreement has not been recorded with the county." "So it isn't valid?" "Not as a property transfer." "But Claire, there's more." I closed my eyes. "What?" "Yesterday, Evan submitted an application for a home equity credit line." "How much?" $450,000. My mouth went dry. "He can't borrow against my house." "Not legally without your authorization." "Did he use the same signature?" "It appears so." I looked toward the medical bed. While I was learning how to stand without damaging my spine, my husband had been trying to borrow nearly $500,000 against my home. Why invite the whole family? I asked. Naomi was silent for a moment. "Pressure." The answer landed immediately. He wanted 12 relatives surrounding me. His mother crying about family security. His sister talking about business opportunities. His cousins insisting the plan was generous. Evan believed medication, pain, and public pressure would make me sign whatever he placed in front of me. He told them I was making an announcement. "Then perhaps you should." I opened my eyes. "What are you suggesting?" "Let them come." At 2:40, Evan sent me a message from the supermarket. "Everyone is excited. Please don't make tonight uncomfortable." I read it twice. Then I replied, "I won't. Tell them to arrive together at 6. I have something to show everyone." His response came immediately. "That's my girl." I stared at those words until they stopped hurting. Then Naomi and I began preparing the room. At 5:30, the dining table held 13 sealed envelopes, one for every relative, and one for Evan. His suitcase stood beside the front door. A projector faced the blank wall. My mother's original deed rested inside a clear, protective sleeve. Beside it sat bank records, screenshots, and the forged agreement Evan believed I had never seen. At 5:58, the first cars entered the driveway. Doors opened. Voices filled the front garden. People began unloading suitcases. Evan walked ahead of them, carrying flowers, and smiling like a man returning to a celebration he had designed perfectly. Then he entered the dining room. He saw the envelopes. He saw Naomi. He saw his suitcase. And finally, he saw the first image projected across the wall. It was a screenshot of a message he had sent his sister. "Claire is heavily medicated. Once everyone is here, she'll sign. She hates disappointing people." Behind him, 12 relatives became completely silent. I stood slowly with both hands on my walker. Evan stared at me. "What did you do?" I looked around at the family he had brought to witness my surrender. Then I smiled. "I made the announcement." No one moved. Evan's mother, Patricia, still held an overnight bag in one hand and a covered casserole in the other. His sister Dana stood beside her husband with a folder tucked beneath her arm. His younger brother, Lucas, looked from the projected message to Evan. Natalie remained near the back of the group. She met my eyes briefly, then looked down. Evan placed the flowers on a side table. "Turn that off." Naomi remained seated at the dining table. "I recommend that everyone read the envelope bearing their name first." Evan looked at her. "Who are you?" "My attorney." The color left his face. His father, Richard, frowned. "Attorney? What is going on?" I looked toward the luggage filling my entryway. "That is exactly what I would like to know." Dana recovered first. She walked toward the table and picked up her envelope. Inside was a printed screenshot of a message Evan had sent her. Once Claire signs, you'll have exclusive control over weddings and private events at the house. We can easily clear 6 figures in the first year. Dana read it once, then folded the page. Evan told me this was your idea. It wasn't. He said your architecture business was slowing down and you wanted me to create another income stream. I never discussed business with you. Her husband opened his envelope. Evan had promised him paid renovation contracts. Patricia's envelope contained a message offering her permanent control of the downstairs suite and monthly payments from the supposed family trust. Lucas had been promised $50,000 to expand his landscaping company. Aunt Marlene had been promised free use of the house for family holidays. Even the teenagers had been told the pool would be added before summer. Every relative had received a slightly different version. Each promise depended on something I had never agreed to give. Richard looked at Evan. You said Claire wanted the property to remain in the family. It is remaining in the family. I tightened my grip on the walker. My mother's family. He turned toward me. We are married. Yes. So, stop speaking like I'm some stranger. A stranger would have needed my permission before applying for a loan against my house. Patricia placed her envelope on the table. What loan? Naomi slid copies of the application across the polished wood. Mr. Morgan applied for a $450,000 home equity line using what appears to be Claire's forged authorization. Evan laughed. The sound was too loud. Nothing was forged. Then when did I sign it? I asked. At the hospital. My stomach turned. He had finally admitted it. I looked around the room. I was less than 24 hours out of surgery. You were awake. I was vomiting from anesthesia. You understood what I explained. You told me it was insurance paperwork. His mother stared at him. Evan. He turned toward her. It was temporary financing. We needed money to develop the property. He pointed around the room. This family. Dana stepped backward. You said Claire already approved everything. She had. No, I said. She hadn't. Evan's voice sharpened. You constantly complain that everyone uses the house but refuses to contribute. I created a structure where everyone benefits. By taking control of something that isn't yours. I have lived here for 11 years. And somehow never learned that residence is not ownership. Patricia looked at me. Claire, we never wanted your house. I glanced toward her luggage. You arrived expecting permanent use of my recovery room. Her cheeks reddened. Evan said you offered. He said many things. Aunt Marlene opened her envelope. Her message promised that after I transferred the house, I would finally stop acting like a landlord toward family. She looked embarrassed. I never said that about you. No, Evan did. All eyes turned toward him. He ran both hands through his hair. This is ridiculous. Claire is on strong medication. She isn't thinking clearly. There it was. The explanation he had prepared. Pain made me unreliable. Medication made me confused. Surgery made me easy to dismiss. Naomi opened a folder. Claire's surgeon provided confirmation that she is mentally capable of making legal decisions. Evan looked toward me. You contacted your doctor? My nurse was already concerned when she learned 12 overnight guests were arriving. You told outsiders about our private business. You turned my medical recovery into a family meeting. Richard removed his coat slowly. What was the loan money for? Evan did not answer. Naomi did. $150,000 was allocated for property renovation. The remaining $300,000 was to be transferred into Morgan Hospitality Group. Dana frowned. What is that? A limited company registered 9 days ago, Naomi said. Whose company? Lucas asked. Naomi looked at Evan. His. The room became silent again. There was no family trust, no shared business. No plan designed to benefit 12 relatives. Evan had created a private company. He intended to borrow against my home, place his relatives in unpaid or dependent roles, and control every dollar himself. Dana opened the folder she had carried inside. I brought the event schedule you asked me to prepare. She removed several pages. 27 weddings, 3 corporate retreats, 2 holiday markets. I stared at her. You were already accepting bookings. Not deposits. She hesitated. Not officially. How many people believe they have reserved my house? Her eyes filled with panic. Evan told me the agreement was complete. He turned toward her. You were supposed to wait until Monday. So you knew Claire hadn't signed? Dana's voice rose. You said the delay was paperwork. I was protecting the opportunity. For whom? Lucas asked. For all of us. No, Natalie said quietly. Everyone looked at her. She stepped forward. You told me something different. Evan's face hardened. Natalie, stay out of this. She removed her phone. You said the company would be sold after 18 months. Dana stared at him. Sold. Natalie opened a message. Once the event business proves profitable, we sell the property package to a hospitality group. Claire won't fight after she sees the money. My home, my mother's garden, my studio, the room where I slept beside her during her final months. Evan planned to turn all of it into a business and sell it before I fully understood what had happened. You sent that to her? I asked. He pointed toward Natalie. She misunderstood. No, she said. Her voice shook, but she continued. I asked what would happen if Aunt Claire refused. You said she wouldn't have the energy to fight after surgery. Patricia covered her mouth. Richard stared at his son as though seeing him for the first time. Evan stepped toward Natalie. You betrayed me. She moved behind her father. No. I asked Claire whether she knew. That was none of your business. You made it everyone's business when you promised us pieces of her house. Evan turned toward me. This is what you wanted, isn't it? What? To humiliate me in front of my family. I looked at the projected message. She hates disappointing people. You brought them here because you thought they would humiliate me into signing. He lowered his voice. Come upstairs. We can talk privately. I'm not allowed unnecessary stares. For the first time, several relatives looked almost amused. Evan did not. He walked toward the projector. Before he reached it, Naomi stood. You should also know the bank has frozen the loan application. He stopped, and the forged signature has been referred for further review. His shoulders became rigid. There was no forgery. Naomi lifted the hospital document. The signature was copied from an architecture contract Claire signed 4 years ago. I stared at her. We confirmed that. The exact line pressure and tiny ink break are identical. Evan's face went pale. He had copied my signature, not convinced me to sign while medicated, not misunderstood my consent. Copied it. Patricia sank into a chair. Oh, Evan. He looked toward the door. His suitcase stood beside it. What is that doing there? I packed your clothes. He laughed bitterly. You think you can throw me out of my own home? Naomi placed another document on the table. Claire obtained an emergency order granting her temporary exclusive use of the property during her medical recovery while the alleged financial misconduct is reviewed. He picked up the document. This is insane. No, I said. This is quiet. He looked at me. For 11 years, you relied on the fact that I would rather remain quiet than make anyone uncomfortable. I glanced toward his family. You were almost right. He crushed the edge of the paper. Where am I supposed to go? I looked at 12 people holding overnight bags. You brought options. No one offered him a room, not even his mother. Evan's eyes moved from face to face. He had gathered the family because he believed their presence gave him power. Now each person understood that he had used them as pressure. Richard lifted Evan's suitcase. "I'll drive you to a hotel." Evan stared at him. "You're choosing her?" "No," Richard replied. "I'm refusing to help you do this." Before leaving, Evan turned toward me. "You will regret making me your enemy." My back throbbed beneath the brace. I was exhausted. My legs felt unsteady. But my voice did not. "You became my enemy while I still thought you were caring for me." The front door closed behind him. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Patricia looked around the dining room. "What should we do?" I nodded toward the luggage. "Go home." Dana looked at me. "The wedding clients." "Cancel every conversation. I may lose professional contacts." "You offered my private home without permission." Her eyes lowered. "You're right." One by one, the relatives carried their bags outside. Some apologized. Some avoided me. Aunt Marlene quietly took the casserole with her. Natalie remained. "I can leave too," she said. I looked at the young woman who had risked her place in the family to warn me. "You can stay for dinner." She glanced at the empty table. "Is there dinner?" "No." For the first time that day I smiled. "We'll order it." That evening, Natalie and I ate soup from takeout containers while Naomi organized evidence. The house was quiet again. My recovery bed remained where it belonged. At 10:17, my phone vibrated. A message from Evan. "You think the house is safe because the loan failed. Check your business account." I opened my banking app. The operating account for my architecture studio had been emptied. $187,000 was gone. A transfer had been made that morning. The authorization carried my name, but the destination account belonged to Evan's newly created company. He had not only planned to take my house, he had already taken the money I needed to keep my business alive. Naomi told me not to touch anything. No transfers. No angry messages. No public accusations. "Evidence first," she said. "Emotion later." By midnight, the bank's fraud department had frozen the receiving account. Evan had attempted to move the money again, but the transaction was still pending. The funds had not disappeared. Not yet. The following morning, a digital forensics specialist reviewed my business accounts. He discovered that Evan had installed remote access software on my office computer while I was in the hospital. He used saved passwords to enter the banking system. Then he created an approval request that appeared to come from my device. For years, Evan criticized me for working late. Now I understood why he often offered to update my computer while I rested. He did not suddenly become dishonest after my surgery. The surgery only gave him an opportunity to stop hiding it carefully. 3 days later, the bank restored the money to my account pending the investigation. Evan's company was frozen before it conducted any legitimate business. The event bookings Dana arranged were canceled. Most clients were angry. Some threatened legal action. Dana handled those conversations herself. For once, I did not repair the damage created by Evan's promises. Recovery forced me to remain still while other people dealt with their own consequences. It was uncomfortable. Then it became freeing. Patricia visited 2 weeks later. She arrived alone. No suitcase, no casserole, just a small bouquet and a written apology. "I should have questioned him," she said. "You wanted to believe your son. That is not an excuse." "No." She looked toward the recovery bed. "When he said you offered us this room, I thought it was generous." "Did it surprise you?" She became quiet. "Yes." "Then part of you knew." Her eyes filled. "I suppose I did." I accepted the flowers. I did not accept responsibility for making her feel better. Before leaving, she paused at the door. "Evan says you destroyed the family." I looked around the peaceful room. Families are not destroyed by the person who shows everyone the messages. She nodded slowly. I told him something similar. The legal process took 8 months. Not one dramatic hearing. Several smaller ones. Bank interviews. Digital records. Property filings. Statements from Natalie, Dana, and the notary whose credentials had been attached to the false agreement. The notary confirmed she had never witnessed my signature. Evan had copied her seal from an older document. He eventually admitted opening Morgan Hospitality Group and transferring money from my business. He claimed he intended to repay everything after the event company became profitable. The records showed otherwise. Draft emails revealed his plan to sell the business and property rights to an investment group within 2 years. He expected to move the profits into accounts under his control. He also kept notes describing me as temporarily limited after surgery. One line stayed with me. Best time to complete everything is before Claire is fully mobile. My physical weakness had not created his betrayal. It had revealed how long he had been waiting to use it. The divorce was finalized shortly after the investigation concluded. The house remained mine. My architecture studio remained mine. Evan surrendered his financial claims as part of the settlement and accepted legal consequences connected to the forged documents and unauthorized transfer. I did not celebrate when the decree was signed. I breathed. There is a difference. Celebration belongs to winning something new. I had simply stopped someone from taking what already belonged to me. Evan asked to speak with me outside the courthouse. Naomi remained nearby. He looked thinner, less polished. Without my house, my business, and the image of a successful marriage behind him, he appeared ordinary. "You turned my entire family against me," he said. I leaned lightly against my cane. By then, I no longer needed the walker. "No, you sent each person a different promise. They would have benefited from something you did not own. I was trying to build a future with my home, our home. My mother's deed disagrees." His jaw tightened. "You always cared more about that house than our marriage." "That house never lied to me." He looked away. For a moment, he seemed tired rather than angry. "I was under pressure." "So was my spine." He almost smiled. I did not. "I thought once the business succeeded, you would understand." "No, Evan." I looked directly at him. "You thought once everything was completed, I would be too exhausted to fight." He lowered his voice. "Do you hate me?" I considered the question. Hate would have required me to carry him into the future. I had already carried too much. "No." He looked surprised. "I believe you now." His expression changed. "What does that mean?" "For years, you told me I was selfish whenever I created a boundary, cold whenever I asked questions, difficult whenever I said no. I adjusted my grip on the cane. Now I believe what your actions said instead." I walked away before he could answer. My recovery took almost a year. At first, progress was measured in feet. From the bed to the bathroom. From the bathroom to the kitchen. From the front door to the mailbox. Then it was measured in blocks. Eventually, I walked through the garden without a cane. I kept the downstairs suite, but I changed it. The hospital bed was removed. The medication table disappeared. I placed a drafting desk beside the window and created a small consultation room for clients restoring accessible homes. After surgery, I understood how thoughtlessly houses could exclude injured or disabled people. Steps became walls. Low chairs became traps. Bathrooms became risks. I began designing spaces for people returning home after serious operations. The work felt personal, useful, honest. Natalie visited the following spring. We sat on the back patio drinking coffee. Most of Evan's family remained divided. Some believed I had been too harsh. Others finally recognized how often Evan used guilt to control them. Dana rebuilt her event planning career without using my property. Patricia and Richard attended counseling with their son. I did not ask whether they forgave him. Their relationship belonged to them. My boundaries belonged to me. Natalie looked toward the dining room windows. "I still think about that night." "So do I." When we all walked in and saw those envelopes, Uncle Evan looked terrified. He thought I would be asleep. He thought you would be powerless. I smiled faintly. I was in pain. That isn't the same thing. 5 days after spinal surgery, my husband brought 12 relatives into my home. He expected them to fill every room, to take my recovery suite, to repeat his promises, to stand around me until surrender felt easier than resistance. Instead, they found 13 envelopes, a lawyer, a forged agreement projected across the wall, and my husband's suitcase waiting beside the door. Evan believed strength meant standing without help. Surgery taught me something different. Strength can look like a walker, a brace, a trembling hand calling an attorney, a woman who cannot lift 10 pounds but still refuses to sign away her life. Sometimes the most important move you make happens while everyone else believes you are unable to move at all. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. What would you have done if your spouse invited 12 relatives into your home days after surgery? And would you have allowed any of them to stay after discovering the real plan? For more stories about betrayal, intelligent revenge, and women who reclaim their lives one decision at a time, subscribe to Her Final Move and stay with us.